Okay, so if I was to ask, like, what is a star? Then I don't know. Is it a big ball of gas? It's plasma, right? That's kind
Well,
of where.
this is the current theory that's trending, getting very popular. But from the viewpoint of human psychology, say we want to look at the cosmos and look at those starry constellations, right? What are they? They're engrams. I call them engrams. So just like
Okay.
you have engrams in your brain, you have in your brain in the firing of the neural circuits, the axon and the dendron. You have billions of circuits firing right now as we're talking. But they,
Hmm.
they don't necessarily they don't fire in randomly, they fire in paths. And those paths are determined by engrams, by clusters or neuronal circuits. And what the zodiac is, the real sky zodiac, is the mirror of those neuronal circuits in your brain.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Okay. That's cool.
Oline, here I am again, uh, conversing with Gen Z. And our topic today is a double topic. I think this idea of taking two topics is kind of clever.
Hmm.
Talk about astrology, and then we'll talk about enlightenment. Ooh, we're going to
Ooh.
get really, really spiritual. We're going to start to ascend.
We're gonna go straight past 5D. We're gonna go to 9D.
Yeah, right. What D do you think we're in right now?
Which D?
Yeah,
That's a good question. Depends where my head is at.
that's a good answer. Yeah. So I sent you this document. I want to play around a little bit here. I'm in a mischievous mood.
Excellent.
Yeah. I sent you a document, remember? And I said print it out. You don't necessarily have to have done that. I have the document right here. So, do you remember what it's called?
Yes, it is. Miranda document for the Nahual.
Yeah, the Miranda Rule of the Nahual. Now, I assume everyone knows what the Miranda Rule is, in cop shows, and, you have a right to remain silent and so forth. So, some years back, around 10, I had some people come around to Andalusia for a telestic session. I think there were about 10 people. And that's when I introduced this Miranda rule. So the evening before we did the first telestic session using psilocybe mushrooms, we all sat at a long table and I printed out one copy of the rule for everyone and I had them sign it. Okay. So we're not going to do that here, but I will read the rule simply for your edification and your amusement. And I'm speaking to the people who are watching this pre-recorded conversation. This is the Miranda rule of the Nahual. You have the option to remain silent when questioned, but your silence will not protect you. Anything you say or do, or anything you say or do not say, can be used to expose your pretenses, demask your pretending, and dissolve your denial. You have the option to consult a guardian spirit before speaking to the Nahual. If you do not have acquaintance with a guardian spirit, one will be appointed for you by the Nahual. If from this moment on you choose to engage in dialogue with the Nahual, your sense of personal reality can, and most certainly will, be permanently altered. Hearing and understanding this rule, do you now consent to converse with the Nahual? So generally, I gave them that paper and they all signed it beforehand. So it occurred to me to bring this up. I get these wild ideas once in a while. I amuse myself with them, and then I wonder, well, fuck, I wonder if anyone else would be amused, along with me.
I'm feeling
And
amused.
so I'm bringing it up, but it's no big deal. As a matter of fact, I can't really implement it in this situation. That is to say, I can't enforce the rule. And the reason for that is because we're in the virtual.
Mm,
And for me to enforce the rule, we would have to be in the physical, and we would have to be in a situation eye to eye. So I can look at that camera point, and you can look at that camera point, and theoretically our eyes are meeting in the virtual, but they're not really meeting. So I can't really enforce the rule without that direct eye contact. But
mm.
there it is, and maybe we'll see if it comes up or shows up somewhere in the conversation. What do you say about that?
Excellent. I consent.
Good. So let's talk about astrology. Big
Okay.
subject. Yeah,
Big subject.
yeah.
Lots of lots of new age ideas around astrology.
Far too
Um,
many. Far too
mhm.
many. Yeah. I practiced professional consulting for 35 years. And in that process, I kind of recreated and revamped and upscaled astrology. So the kind that I practiced is not similar to New Age astrology or any conventional form. Uh, so that is an issue because, let's say, astrology, the mere concept of it comes to us with a lot of baggage, a lot of
Mm.
baggage involved. So let's just guess our way into it. Uh, I can say, for instance, I can ask you, well, what do you think comes up in someone's mind when you mention the word astrology or the horoscope? Or what's the first thing that comes up in your mind?
That it's some sort of clock. It's like the archetypal clock or the big cogs in the divine experiment. Some very large, some small, and they're all attached to each other, like you would find in a watch, a very complex watch. And depending on where the time, the place, and the date of your birth, those cogs imprint uh, characteristics and um, maybe even your fate to a lesser or greater extent. I'm not entirely sure.
Uh-huh.
And within that framework, you have free will to to choose,
Hmm.
but how your fate develops. But there's a track that is set for you, and that is set, and that is your astrology.
Well, it's a really good concept. Imprint, the notion of imprint certainly figures into this. One of the big questions when you look into the theory of astrology, when you go back and look at the history and look at the theory and try to understand the foundations of the method, uh, the idea of imprint arises. For instance, one of the first people I encountered, I was actually at the headquarters of the World Theosophical Society in Ajar, that's in southern India.
Hmm.
And I came across these 5 volumes by a man named Alan Leo. This is the end of the 19th century. He wrote these books. And he was a theosophist. He was the resident theosophist of the resident astrologer of the Theosophical movement, Alan Leo. And Leo basically took his concept of imprint from Vedic and Hindu teachings. And so the idea was that it was an imprint of your past karma, your karmic tendencies, which are
Hmm.
called samskaras. Samskaras
Hmm.
means literally, it means an imprint. So
Hmm.
he linked it very strongly to the theory of reincarnation, right? So that's one thing. And then, of course, it's morphed. It's gone through a lot of changes. I wouldn't even know what to say now about what, New Age people postulate as the basis of astrology. But how about going specifically to the horror show, which is the horoscope? So let's
Hmm.
talk about the horror, okay? Uh, Have you ever had your horoscope read by an astrologer?
I have, yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how did you find it?
I found some to be very accurate. Uh, others to others to be tainted by the reader. Um, and but generally it showed a reflection of myself to me. Um, uh, yeah, some extremely accurate, some not so accurate, but
You
I
had
don't
more
really.
than you had more than one done.
I have, yeah.
So yeah, what I came to be thinking about, anticipating our conversation was, I'm so out of it really. I mean, I'm here, but I'm, like, where am I also?
Hmm.
Uh, that I don't really know what people expect when they go get their horoscope read. And also, there are different schools or genres of astrology. You know that, different systems. Now, the system we're going to talk about, I'd like to talk about anyway, is what is called tropical astrology. And that is the conventional Western system of the 12 sun signs,
Hmm.
Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and so forth. There's also Vedic astrology, Chinese astrology, Tibetan. There are even versions of Maya Aztec astrology. There's all kinds.
Hmm.
Uh, but we're going to be talking about the tropical system because that's the one that I used and practiced. And I don't know what someone today, like Gen Z, someone in their, say, 20s, what they expect to get when they go for an astrological consultation or what they do get. You know,
Hmm.
I have absolutely no idea. I don't know what they expect.
I think you get it's a very female dominated art.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it is. Yes.
And I think that blurs the sort of mechanics of it a lot. I think that people expect to get some sort of understanding about themselves, which they can then use. And I think that a lot of people will sort of say, "Oh, I'm whatever, like my moon is in Libra, and therefore I'm a psychotic bitch," or
Right.
something like that.
That's
Um,
it.
and I can get away with my actions because it's sort of I can't help it.
Yeah.
And that's the pretty basic kind of basic bitch understanding of astrology. I have spoken to people who appear to me to be good astrologers, and they will say, it can be so specific, like where you are on the sign itself. So, say Sagittarius, which is the archer. Is it Sagittarius, which is the horse and the archer together? Yeah. So, are you on the tip of the arrow or are you on the butt of the horse? And that will um, have big implications for you.
Hold on a minute. Hold on. What do they mean by the tip of the arrow?
Um,
The beginning of the sign,
yeah, I guess so.
and the butt of the horse would be the end of the sign?
I suppose so. Yeah.
No, well,
If it's
that's very misleading. Let me have the pleasure of correcting that. But for
mm,
the moment, I want to say this, and this is really important to the boys who might be listening here. Astrology has become kind of a female-dominated genre, and there's just hundreds of books by women on astrology. Hundreds. They're pumping them out all the time. There are some serious problems with that. Uh, One of them is that I can tell you from my experience that I knew a fair number of female astrologers in LA and Santa Fe and elsewhere. And this is generalization, but I would say that most of them followed this procedure. They said, well, an astrological chart is an extremely complicated mechanism. We'll get into that. I'll show you how it is. And they said it has so many technicalities. Sure, if you have the sun at the beginning of the sign in the first decan, the second decan, 10-degree section, the third decan, if you have a planet retrograde, there are all these, it's extremely technical, which ought to appeal to the male mentality, in my opinion. I mean, that's one of the reasons why it appealed to me.
Hmm.
You know? But then they say, but I don't really pay much attention to that. I just look at the chart and then I use it to prompt my intuition. And I
Mm.
speak from my female intuition as if female intuition were superior to male intuition.
Mm.
What a joke.
Mm.
What a joke that is. What a pretense that is, you know? And I remember I was talking to one woman in LA and she said, we're comparing, tradecraft, a couple of astrologers trading, secrets. And I said, well, I look very precisely at an aspect, Someone has Venus in, say, Cancer, retrograde in the first house, square, that's my dog, square Neptune in Libra in the fourth house. I translate those particular details. And she said, oh, I just don't do that. I just use it as a prop and I just say what my intuition tells me.
Right.
I think it's I commend her for her honesty, but I think that's really outrageous.
It's LARPing.
And one of the things I want to say and get across here, hold on just a sec. Again, speaking to men and boys in a lot, uh, there's sort of a view, well, the old line, astrology is a good way to, get into a woman's pants, you know what I mean? That was
Mm.
astrology with it. And that is true, by the way. Uh, I had a rule I did not consort with my clients,
Mm.
and I pretty much kept to that rule because I had hundreds and hundreds of clients. And I would
Mm.
say 80% of them were women.
Mm.
But the point that I'm trying to make here is that it's unfortunate that astrology has that connotation, female thing, female intuition, psychobabble, you
Mm.
know, and yet it has tremendous appeal for men as well,
Mm.
especially the type of astrology that I've developed. It's very, you know, left brain. Is that what it is? It can be very precise and very satisfying in the mathematical beauty and precision of it. So I think it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that the field has become dominated by women.
Yeah, I think you could say that it's part of STEM. In university there's STEM, like science, technology,
Yeah.
economics, and mathematics,
Hmm.
and it is just an anti-materialist element of
Absolutely.
of STEM. So actually, it,
Absolutely.
it should be a male-dominated uh, region or industry, because
Yeah,
it's
I agree.
mechanics.
I agree. And I have, I'm playing it that way. I'm not going to get into a lot about what my particular contribution to astrology is, because that would be another subject, but I am playing it more toward the male mind, because it really can be very engaging. So just want to say this and then ask you another question. Or you could suppose you asked me the question. Well, John, what the hell did you think you were doing 35 years as an astrologer, casting charts for people?
Mm.
And I can tell you in plain English, in a minute, it's just a tool for psychological profiling.
Hmm.
It's a very, very good tool in the right hands. You know, a competent astrologer can profile your personality very, very accurately.
Mm.
So it's a way of reading. When I look at a person's horoscope, I see their complexes, I see the syndromes of their personality, the repetition, compulsion mechanisms. I see their attitudes and how they negotiate certain situations and where they need to develop certain things. All
Hmm.
of that is it's a tremendous tool for psychological profiling, and that's
Mm.
how I used it.
So it would be like the original tool of psychological profiling.
Yeah, because it is very ancient. I mean, modern psychology is only 120 years old, but
Mm,
astrological psychology is centuries old. By the way, the other thing that I want to say, but I'm not going to explain this, I'll just put it out to tease you and annoy you. But if you if you ask an astrologer, an honest astrologer, well, how does this actually work? For instance, I've got the sun. I say, oh, I have the sun in Taurus, and I have the moon in Gemini, and I have Scorpio as a rising sign. And how do you get this psychological jargon, this language of psychology that you're talking to me with as an
mm,
astrologer from these parts, from these components? And the
mm,
honest astrologer will tell you, I don't know.
mm,
I don't know how that comes to be. There's a school called astrotheology, which, in
mm,
my opinion, is a big crock of shit. But they purport, they claim to be able to explain, why Mars means defiance and anger, and why Jupiter means friendship or higher mind.
mm,
Actually, that's a very tricky thing. So it's quite mysterious. Uh, I stand by the view of Danu Jar, who was one of the great astrologers of the 21st century. He really brought astrology, 20th century, excuse me. He brought it into the modern world in his book, The Astrology of Personality. And I love what he said. He said it's just a system of semantics.
mm,
That's all it is. So if you say, well, you're, a Capricorn, and then I give you the traits of what a Capricorn is, I'm just giving you semantics. But if you ask me, well, how does that particular set of traits and semantics of that behavior come from Capricorn? I don't know. Nobody does,
mm.
which is very weird when you think about
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So it's an unknown science,
Right.
but that can still be applied because for
Yeah.
some reason,
Even though
mm,
no one can fully explain that, even though some people claim they can, it works. And it
mm,
really works. It really works. I did so many readings. Some of them were excellent. I've had people contact me 20 years later and tell me they're still listening to the recording that I did.
mm,
I had some mediocre. I had some that were really bad. And, you know, but I always was comfortable with the tool. I trusted the tool. I trusted that it would work. I didn't always do my best with it.
mm, mm. What makes a good reading and a bad reading?
A good reading is just its accuracy. Like in the best cases, and I would say there were a lot. I could sit down with someone, complete stranger to me, and within 20 minutes, I could be talking with them about the most intimate details of their psyche, their
Mm,
desire, their fears, aspirations, as if I had known them for a very long time.
mm,
That's when it's good. But like
mm,
any tool, you have to use it correctly.
mm. Does the self-referential, nature of reality get in the way of doing an accurate reading?
Meaning what?
Meaning, okay, so women would say they have a higher intuition, for example, but you could just restate that as they're just more emotional.
I don't know. I
And
never met a woman more emotional than me. But anyway, go on. Don't get
or
me wrong.
yeah,
Yeah.
or maybe they have a tendency to be more open with their emotions. And then this self-referential prism that
Oh,
they
I see what
have.
you mean. In other words, they come to the astrologer with a lot of baggage uh, about who they think they already are.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah, that happens. There's always a certain amount of resistance or openness that I would feel with a client. Some of them are really open. Some of them, were more cautious, holding back because what I was telling them was not consistent with what they thought about themselves.
Mm,
And that's a huge laugh when you do that.
mm, mm.
It's like, yeah, right. People come with a lot of baggage, and I guess they just expect, uh, one thing you can always count on, you get people's attention if you talk about them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're fascinated by themselves. So that's one thing you can always count on. But yeah, you can run into those clashes with self-perception. That's very true.
Hmm. Hmm. And this might be going off track, but I guess it can be used in a negative and controlling way. I mean, like for example, or maybe even a better example is something like human design. Are you familiar with human design?
I sure am. It comes from
Yeah.
Santa Fe. It comes from Santa Fe, and I know the guy who invented it.
Uh-huh.
And it was quite popular in the last few years I was in Santa Fe. Everyone was getting their human design done.
And it seems to be have resurged in popularity these days as well. But it also seems to me like a way to control people because I mean, I was actually just listening, overhearing some people. I'm in a very hippie town right now, so
Mhm.
I was overhearing some people ask, like, what's a human design? And they say, like, oh, I'm a generator. And I just like, it's like saying I'm a battery for other people,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, it's
And
contacting yourself. It links into the Enneagram of Gurdjieff.
mm,
And you put a label on yourself. Well, I'm this type, and then you go and live that out. Well,
mm,
is that really uh, does that type that you've been labeled at by your sun sign or by uh, human design actually represent what you are innately? Or is it just a convenient label that you can wear? And in that sense, it can really be misleading and worse than misleading.
mm. I mean, I could ask you this question. So, is your astrology something to be overcome?
Well, the human condition is something to be overcome. And
Mm,
insofar as you see, I don't, it's good that you raise this point because I don't view the horoscope as a record of imprints carried over from a previous incarnation.
hmm.
I don't. Like I said,
Okay, so it's
Alan
just
Leo introduced that idea. I don't. In fact, I just reject the idea of incarnation, reincarnation, literal reincarnation of the same.
hmm.
You I reject that. Uh,
Okay.
Basically, I see it. It's what I call it's a template of social pathology, is what it really is.
Mm,
It doesn't show like your innate tendencies from whoever you were in the past. It shows the interface between that new being who is born, that new awareness with the social environment around it.
mm,
And it shows how the uh, elements of social influence from family, education, society in general, uh, they imprint us and how we manage what we are being imprinted with in the social order. That's my concept of it, you see.
okay. Okay, that's really interesting. So it shows us our preconditioned tendency for the response to this human
Absolutely.
condition.
Exactly. You got it exactly. Yeah.
Hmm. Mm. So
So
what would yeah,
let's see. I want to keep track here so that we have like 40 minutes on astrology and then we move to the other subject. And I'd like to take the opportunity, if I can. I wonder if I can do this. I wonder what would happen if I shared the screen. Can I try that?
yeah, absolutely.
I'm sharing my screen, and then I want to go to the desktop, and I want to go to, hold on a sec, see if this works. If not, I'll stop sharing. I want to go to desktop. How do I go to the desktop? Can't do it. Oh, can I do it? Yeah, I can do it. So here's a page that goes to a system of astrology called Celestics. And you'll notice that it says it's,
I can't see it, just to
you
let you
can't
know.
see anything. Okay,
No.
that's cool. Then I'll wait. I will share. You
Oh,
see,
now I can see it. Yeah, yeah. Now it's coming up.
see it says Celestics
Mm.
and it says forensic astronomy. Okay, so this is astronomy. You know, astronomy and astrology are different. And
Mm.
they were born together like Siamese twins, but then they got separated. So if I may, I'd like to uh, say a little bit about that for those people who are interested in the subject of astrology that I am now uh, sharing with you as intimate knowledge, okay?
Hmm.
So you see that? That's a typical astrology chart.
Very open to me now.
It looks complicated, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It is. It's very complicated.
Yeah. If you didn't know anything about that,
Yeah,
it's completely inconceivable. Like you
yeah.
can't enter it.
And most people don't. So they sit down with the astrologist, got this chart in front of them on the table, and they are like the master of your destiny because they can decode this. It's very, very complicated. And so that's something that I didn't like to do. I didn't like to be present myself as someone who was decoding something that the client couldn't ever understand. I wanted to educate the client in their own behavior.
Mm.
You know? But I did look, I did use very precisely all these elements. You see, what you're looking at there is really composed of four parts. One part is the signs. You see the symbols of the signs.
Hmm.
That's a circle. The other part is the houses. You see the numbers inside?
Yeah.
And those are like two wheels over each
Mm.
other. And one wheel moves over the other. So you can have a combination of 12 signs and 12 houses. You already have 144 variations. That's just for starters.
Mm.
Then you have the planets, which you see them in there. And so
Yeah.
each planet is in a sign and a house. For instance, the moon is in 10 degrees of the sign of Libra right there, and it's in the first house. Okay? So that's 10 times 144. So that's 1,444. And you're just getting started
Mm.
because the next factor is called, the fourth factor is called the aspects. And the aspects are the angular relations between the planets, you see?
Mm.
So there's a certain angular division between Neptune and the moon, or between the moon and Venus, which is over here. And those
Mm.
angles represent the dynamics of your psyche and of your mind and your behavior. And generally, astrologers use a different number, but let's say there are nine different kinds of aspects: conjunction, opposition, square, these are all angular.
Sextile. Yeah.
And when you pair off the nine planets, there are 42 pairs. And so
Hmm.
you multiply 9 by 42, and then you multiply it by 1,440, and that is the total number of possible code lines in a horoscope.
Okay.
You get the picture?
Yeah, I get the picture.
It runs, believe me or not, maybe my calculations are exaggerated, but I don't think so. It runs to about 700,000 lines.
Mm.
But in one individual horoscope, only about 700 of those lines appear. 700 discrete code lines, right?
Mm.
But the astrologer then has to even choose maybe 70 or 35 of those code lines. Otherwise, they'd be talking to you till your next birthday, right?
Mm.
So it's a very complicated affair. Uh, but it doesn't have to be, because actually, this is another way to look at the system. It's another template.
Mm.
And these are actually the constellations in the sky, you see? the real sky constellations, because these signs that you see have nothing to do with the stars.
Mm.
There are no stars in this chart. The only star in a horoscope is the sun,
Hmm.
which is right here. The sun is a star, okay? But the signs are not stars. The signs of the zodiac have nothing to do with the stars.
So Jupiter is not Jupiter in the sky.
No, the planets are the planets in the sky,
Okay, okay.
but they are not in the zodiac of the sky.
Hmm.
See, there are two zodiacs. One of the zodiacs is the actual surroundings that you can see,
Mm.
but that's not what you get when you go for a horoscope reading.
Mm.
See, the 12 signs of the zodiac, you can see here. This is the earth, and this is the path of the sun around the earth, right? See that? Can you see
Yeah,
it?
yeah, I can see
And
it.
you see how it's divided into 12 sections?
Mm.
So those sections, like Scorpio over here or Capricorn down here, are simply divisions of the ecliptic of the orbital plane of the Earth. They are independent of stars entirely.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
I was looking for my book. Of course, I can never find anything. But my book, Quest for the Zodiac, in which I said astrology is not wrong on its own terms. It works as a system. I used it for many, many years. I know that it works, but it's wrongly defined as a star-based system.
Mm.
So if you are born and you're a Capricorn, and you think, or here, if you were born and you're a Taurus, you see this?
Hmm.
And you think that your sun is here in this constellation of Taurus, it's not.
Mm.
It's not there. Because your sun sign Taurus has no star reference attached to it. So this
Yeah.
is the actual constellation of Taurus. So that's something that I would like to, I'm obviously using this conversation, and I'm going to shut up here in a minute, to show you, to inform people who've had a chart done or who want to have charts done, that if you go to conventional Western astrology, you're going to get a system that works fine if your astrologer is competent, but it has nothing whatsoever to do with these constellations in the sky. Nothing.
Right.
So that's very few people know that.
Hmm.
Uh, and I don't know, did
So
you know that? Did you
I
know?
didn't know. No, I didn't know that. I assumed that it was the sky.
Even some astrologers don't know that. Believe me, it's shameful.
Mm.
It's outrageous, really. So,
So so what is it if it's not the sky?
well, the sky is the sky. You can go out and look at it at night, and you can see the constellations in the sky, like those patterns.
Mm.
But that is not used in a tropical astrology chart.
Mm.
It is not used. So what I'm saying is that if you're born with a sun in Aries, right, the sign,
Mm.
it does not mean that when you were born, the sun was in front of a constellation of a ram. It doesn't
Hmm.
mean that. You have to go to another format. It's like going to another operating system. And
Mm.
so I've done a lot with that operating system, which is called Celestics. But we're not here to go into that particular subject. But I just wanted to make that clear because it's really shocking.
Hmm.
And many people get their chart done and they don't know that. It doesn't invalidate it. If the astrologer was good, then they profile you as a Scorpio or a Libra or an Aquarius, and that profile fits. Astrological stereotyping fits. It
Hmm.
works
Yeah.
because it is an accurate semantic system.
Okay.
But it has nothing to do with what the astrologer who tells you about those constellations tells you. It has nothing to do with that. That's another operating system.
Mm. And is it so that's Celestics, the other operating system
Right.
based in the sky. And I know nothing really about that. Is it?
Nobody does.
Yeah.
Join the club.
Okay, so if I was to ask, like, what is a star, then I don't know. Is it a big ball of gas? It's plasma, right? That's kind
Well,
of where.
this is the current theory that's trending, getting very popular. But from the viewpoint of human psychology, say we want to look at the cosmos and look at those starry constellations, right? What are they? They're engrams. I call them engrams. So just like
Okay.
you have engrams in your brain, you have in your brain in the firing of the neural circuits, the axon and the dendron. You have billions of circuits firing right now as we're talking. But they,
Hmm.
they don't necessarily they don't fire in randomly, they fire in paths. And those paths are determined by engrams, by clusters of neuronal circuits. And what the zodiac is, the real sky zodiac, is the mirror of those neuronal circuits in your brain.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Okay. That's cool.
That's I'm happy to hear you say that. By the way, that website, I can link it when we post the talk. That website is up, and some of the pages of it are open for public consumption. So anyone who wants to go and look at forensic astronomy can go and look there and see if they like it. So why don't we leave it
Hmm.
there for now and move on to the subject of enlightenment?
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you this question. Uh, do you think it would be possible from looking at a horoscope to tell if someone was enlightened or not?
Hmm. So if I was to say yes, the reason would be because they have realized th the self in its relation to their horoscope, which is in relation to the imposed human condition, and they've broken free from that cage.
Well, it's an excellent way to put it together. And it leads directly into the subject of enlightenment because it begs this question. Well, what is enlightenment? Is it some kind of realization of the self? How do you define
Mm,
it? Okay.
mm. So uh, maybe in the sort of Vedantic conception, so it'd be the self as a drop in the ocean of the infinite oneness, and sort
Yeah.
of realizing that. But I'm also kind of slightly familiar with this idea of Kaivalya. Is that what it's called?
The
Um,
Kabbalion.
no, Kaivalya,
Oh,
Kaivalya.
Kaivalya. It means liberation while in the body. The highest form of, it's the Vedic term for enlightenment. It's Kaivalya. All right.
Mhm. And I sort of understand that to be you realize you are the drop in the ocean, but beyond that, you realize that you have the whole ocean in that drop of yourself.
Well,
The
that is the legacy paradigm that comes from Vedic Asian mysticism. That is one of the gifts or jewels of the Asian spiritual legacy that comes down
Mm,
to us and is widely accepted by many people, except me,
mm,
right? And it's based on the idea in the Vedas, which is very prominent and has been revived by the Mahatmas and gurus who came to the United States in the 60s, like Yogananda, Maharishi, you know, which is that when you come to know your true self, you know that yourself is God and it is the divine essence, and you are identical with God, and that is the ultimate knowing of the self. And
mm,
spirituality is the quest or path that leads you to that knowledge. So you
mm,
have in Vedic tradition the Kaivalya concept, and then you come over into Buddhism, and it's called enlightenment, right?
mhm.
Is that really, is how could you verify that? Can you verify it?
No, not that I can think of. Um, it
Does anyone
strikes.
you know, can anyone you know verify it?
I would also say no, um, because you will verify it up to what standard or against what metric.
Against what standard? By what standard would you verify it? I always, when I think about enlightenment, well, I don't really ever think about it, but when I pretend that I'm thinking about it, uh, two things always come to mind. Well, the question that anyone might ask, well, where are the enlightened? Where are the enlightened ones today?
Hmm.
Stoic Buddhism. Let's just focus on Buddhism. Around 550 BC, which, by the way, is the middle of the Kali Yuga, the exact middle.
Okay,
It began
that's
in
a good reference.
2102 BC. It ends in 2216, and right in the middle, he appeared. Well, who is he? Well, Shakya Muni, the sage of the Shakya clan. He was of the Shakya clan.
Hmm.
It's a warrior caste, and his name was Siddhartha, and he's also been called Gautama.
Hmm.
So this was presumably a man who lived historically in India, and he achieved enlightenment, so he became the Buddha, right?
Hmm.
So you have this example, but where are the Buddhists today? Where are the enlightened ones, walking among us? Have you met any?
No,
Have you met anyone who claimed to be enlightened?
um, not strictly, but I do know a lot of gurus who kind of claim to be.
Yeah, it's ambiguous, isn't it? It's kind of
Hmm.
foggy because I've had a lot of connection with Buddhists in my life, and especially in Santa Fe, and especially in the last years there, they built a stupa, and the Tibetan Buddhists came in, and there were always a lot of Buddhists there. You know, it's a great refuge for neurotic people, and it was like, oh, wait a minute, there's Rinpoche so and so. Well, what's going on with Rinpoche so and so? I'd like ask myself, like a naive young boy of 10 years old. Well, are people regarding or assuming him to be enlightened because he's a high Buddhist Lama, right? Or has he himself said he is enlightened? Does he claim it? Or has he denied it? Or are other people just sort of assuming that about him, right? I
Hmm.
always have that question and never got a clear answer to that question. You follow
Hmm.
me? You feel
Yeah,
me?
I feel you. I guess maybe people might assume it based on someone's presence and whether that how that makes them feel.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe the standard of enlightenment, the metric by which you can judge whether you're enlightened is whether is Gautama, is the Siddhartha Gautama.
Yeah, he's kind of a model, but what kind of a model is he? There's endless stories about him, and then there's countless number of sutras and dogmas and doctrines and things that have been written through the centuries, and then the innumerable number of practices, complicated practices of meditation. I mean, there's all this baggage that comes with
Hmm.
enlightenment, but basically it all boils down to one uh, assumption. And that assumption is enlightenment is a state of realization of the highest type of self knowledge or God knowledge, right?
Hmm.
And it is a state to be attained. And you do these practices in order to attain that state. And presumably, there are some people who've attained that state, but if you go around looking for them, I haven't spotted them yet. I know there are some people who claim to be enlightened. Uh, so is so let's just step back for a minute and look at that proposition. Okay, enlightenment is this absolute paramount condition of awakeness of the mind, and it's extraordinary, and it's Buddhahood, and you obtain it like the Buddha did by following certain practices or by following the practices of the generations of people who followed the practices of the
hmm
Buddha,
hmm
right? Well, how's that working out for you? Is my
Well,
question.
it seems to me it follows in the same paradigm as something like original sin, or that you're born broken, and therefore you need to like fix yourself.
Good comparison. Very good comparison.
It's just a different way or a different like story
And
based on.
what is the original sin of Buddhism going back to the doctrines allegedly uh, coming from the historical Buddha? What is the original sin of Buddhism?
I don't know, but my guess would be it's the world itself.
Mm-mm. Nope. You will find
Okay,
that very clearly stated in the Four Noble Truths. And the first noble truth is, in Sanskrit, Sarvam Dukkham. Everything is suffering.
right.
So the original sin of Buddhism is suffering.
Mm, Which is the same as Christianity.
It may as well be. I mean,
Yeah.
where do you go from there? So, that's really what hooks people.
Mm,
Buddhism, I guess. I guess they think that on the way to the path of enlightenment, you overcome suffering and you don't have to suffer anymore.
mm,
That's why I say it's a beautiful recipe for neurotic people
hmm
who create their own suffering by their own asinine behavioral
mm,
syndromes. They create their own suffering and then they say, "Oh, Buddhism is my way to get out of suffering."
mm,
Sabram Dukkham. Dukkha means suffering. Everything is suffering. And then what are the three other noble truths? You may as well give you the whole package here.
hmm
I'm not offering fries with it today because the French fry machine is broken.
mm.
Give you, give you the package. So, what is the cause of suffering? Trishna or tanha in Pali. What is tanha? Trishna? It's desire. So, in a way, desire is the original sin of
mm,
suffering, and of Buddhism, and it's compounded because it creates suffering. And there you are. You're in samsara. You're trapped in this world of
mm,
like the mouse on on the running on that wheel, the wheel of
hmm
on and on, and it's so fucking tiring, man. So anyway, finally, the Four Noble Truths say, well, what is freedom from suffering? How do you get that? Well, it's freedom from desire. And how do you
mm,
get freedom from desire? And then there's the Eightfold Noble Path. And then after that, there's about 100,000 different practices that you can do on the way to attaining enlightenment. I'm really
mm.
bashing Buddhism here, but this ain't nothing. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
around the edges when I really go for the throat with Buddhism, as I've done,
Mm,
on Dog Zen.
hmm
So how about this? I'll give you a little anecdote just for the fun of it. When I got to Japan, I was like 19 years old, and I found myself in Tokyo, and that's where I first really encountered Buddhism. And I found it in the work of Alan Watts.
mm,
He was like a popular guru of the 60s. He was a contemporary and friend of Timothy Leary,
mm.
that whole era.
Yeah.
This was in the 60s, by the way. So I was very, very fortunate. I consider myself to be fortunate. Why? Because I immediately, on the first shot, I found myself looking at something. And then years later, as I began to encounter Buddhists in my life, I realized they don't even know about this.
Mm.
How come I know about this? I mean, dedicated Buddhists, people who spend 20 years, people who give tons of money, who go on pilgrimages to the Dalai Lama and everything, they don't know about this. How come I know about this? Because a book of Alan Watts fell into my hand. And what Alan Watts teaches is non-attainment Buddhism,
Okay.
non-attainment Buddhism.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
that basically throws everything else into the trash because the premise of non-attainment Buddhism is, well, don't bother to seek enlightenment because you're already enlightened and you can't attain something that you already have.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know how this is coming across to anybody who's listening to this, but I can tell you that hit me in a spectacular fashion.
Yeah, I mean, an example is the sort of the striver. Like, there was a big meme for my generation that's been going around, which is, you've got to grind. You've got to like be grinding 24/7 to get your bag, and you have to be the eternal striver. And you'll never be satisfied, but that's a good thing. And you need to, yeah, just work hard over and over and over again. It's all associated with money, essentially.
Well, that's an interesting meme, and in a way, it's valid. But you have to factor, but you have to. You don't have to do shit. But I find it appropriate to factor love into that.
Mm,
So love and work is the key. So if I have, by the knowledge of myself and my innate talents and my passion, if I have a work that I want to achieve and I love that work, yeah, I'll strive for it.
mm,
But it won't be a misery of striving. It won't be, a burden. It may be very difficult at moments, but it will be a beautiful uh, challenge to strive for something that I can create, something that I can contribute to the world, and something that will endure after I'm not here anymore.
hmm
So that's how I view the concept of striving. There's a
mm,
term from the Romantic movement of the 18th century, which is called heroic striving.
mm.
It's a term that the Romantics used, and probably the current meme draws from that term, even though it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah, I think it's a very Aryan thing. It's a very white thing, like climbing the mountain, and then when you get to the top, you're like, I need to climb another mountain. And there was kind of this amusing meme as well, which is basically where like there were certain black publications, and they would be like, "Why is white men always trying to climb mountains?" Like, just not really understanding that it's the climbing of the mountain that is kind of important, and it's that striving, that de desire to strive, um, which compels us. It's a Faustian man.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
sometimes called the Faustian impulse. Yeah,
mhm,
it's higher striving. That's another meme from the Romantic movement.
mm,
Higher striving. It's also called the moral creative drive. So it's
mm,
not a profit motive drive. It has nothing to do with money or profit. It's
mm,
it fulfills itself in its achievement. You say, if you get paid for it, great. I like that too.
mm,
You don't do it for money because that's the profit motive, and the profit motive is sick
mm,
and
mm,
leads to great evil. Greed is basic to most of the evil you're seeing in the world right now. But there is no greed in the moral creative drive of the human animal.
mm, mm.
But the drive
Yeah.
for enlightenment is kind of a special case because you say, well, you can't class it with the other things because it has something to do with about, well, my innermost self or my something about my awareness. What is it about my awareness that if I realized it now, I would have the Buddhic awareness? What is that? What brings that about?
Mm. There's part of it trying to like escape from the world. I think that's like a big drive for enlightenment, is this idea that the world is evil and needs to be escaped from.
Hold on a
Uh,
second. Hold on a second. In the 60s, The Quest for Enlightenment or The Journey to the East, which is the name of a wonderful novel by Hermann Hesse, by the way,
mm,
was was trending. In those days, we didn't know what trending meant or viral meant. But in my generation of the 60s, okay, The Quest for Enlightenment, go to India, find a Mahatma, find a master, reach enlightenment, samadhi, cosmic consciousness. That was trending. And are you saying that today there's a kind of an escapist version of that trending or popular?
yeah, and it's Escape the Matrix, which was coined by Andrew Tate, who was sort of the big masculine leader of the last 4 years or something like that. Again, but it's all associated. Escaping the Matrix just means being wealthy enough not to be like a goy slave, essentially. Um, and and then the more, I guess, misinterpreted Gnostic, this is what people think Gnosticism is about, is escaping the Matrix, which is escaping the cube Saturnian prison that has been like imposed, which they think is the world itself and like
Sure,
material reality.
sure. Well, that's uh, that's pretty devastating because suppose that in reality that can be proven, enlightenment that can be proven. You know, if someone is enlightened, I want to see them prove it. How do they
Mm,
prove it? In that reality, it would have nothing to do with escape. It would be living fully in the world. It wouldn't matter
mm,
this matrix, it would be living fully and completely in this world based in the realization of your mind that is based in the ultimate knowledge of what mind is.
mm,
And it wouldn't matter. The conditions of life would not matter to someone who's enlightened, whether they lived as a billionaire or whether they had, to face the demands of the social world. It would
mm,
be completely impervious to that.
mm. Yeah, and so that would be like the way I see it is, are you okay to die? And if you are, and you realize that it's this sort of Nietzschean view, like you're in the world. Here is what matters right now. Not trying to ascend out of it, but trying to be in a state of awe of it all and your position within it. And basically, like you can do it. You can like do what thou wilt and do no harm, which is something you said to me the other day. Um, that
Yeah,
to me seems far more appropriate to be
yeah.
like enlightenment.
It's a much more Nietzschean, commitment to life, amor fati, love your fate.
Hmm.
It's very sad to me if there's an escapist spin attached to the concept of enlightenment, in the younger generation. I would stand up and say, don't fall for that. That's very destructive.
Yeah. And I think on the vanguard of thought in my generation, people are realizing it, like the Nietzschean kind of like it's here right now that matters, and yeah, yourself in this sort of world and what you want to do, and like wanting to win is it's a big thing for us now. Like we want to win, especially after for me personally, 10 years of knowing about the Epstein files. And now finally the Epstein files have all come, like not all come to light, but a proportion of them. It's very satisfying. Um, but now it's about like, okay, so what do we do about this? Because we have to win. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, well, I don't I don't know what can be done. It's one thing to uh, awaken people or inform people. Really, it's just informing and educating people about
Mm,
what's going on, about the grifters, the con games, the gaslighting, the psyops, and everything. Sure, it's good that we can live in a time when more members of society are being educated in that way, and when uh, the skullduggery of the psychotics is being exposed. But show me one thing that's been exposed that resulted in the sentencing and in the conviction and sentencing of the perpetrators. Show me one thing.
yeah, yeah,
It doesn't happen. There
no.
has to be some other way to get to those bastards, you know? And
Hmm.
that's something that I priority of mine that I'm thinking about.
Mm,
Let's go back to can we go back to enlightenment just a little bit more?
yeah.
Am I correct in saying that you've never heard of non-attainment Buddhism?
No, I've never heard the phrase. I do know who Alan Watts is, but I've never heard the phrase.
Yeah, that's the technical term for it. By contrast to attainment Buddhism, where the idea that enlightenment is something to be attained, and you attain it by going on a long and arduous path, and then presumably some people like what the Dalai Lama or Sargam Rinpoche or Sadhguru, who's this guy on the internet. Apparently, they went through those things and they attained it, presumably.
Mm.
Again, you get back to that trick. Uh, do they actually claim to be enlightened or not? I don't know. But many people view them that way, apparently. You still there?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm still here. I just had to move to charge to plug my laptop in.
Okay. So let's just, I don't know how our time is running here because I don't want to go for too long. Let's just see if we can, obviously, we've taken on a huge topic here. Let's just see if we can take it around the curve.
Hmm.
So, uh, non-attainment, if enlightenment can't be attained, but you're telling me I'm already enlightened, well, that's kind of baffling. Well, what do I do with that? Where do I go with that? Do you follow me? Can you see how that would be
Yeah.
puzzling to people?
Yes. Yeah.
Kind of stops you in your tracks, right? Well, that's what it's meant to do. Chan was the Chinese form of non-attainment Buddhism, and then it went to Japan and it became Zen. So Chan and Zen, which are associated with the idea of sudden enlightenment, Satori. What is sudden enlightenment? Well, it's what you're experiencing right now, but you're not acting as if you are.
Mm,
That's the truth.
mm,
See?
mm. Okay.
Someone giving you the non-attainment instruction would say, you're already enlightened. You just don't know how to act as if you are.
Mm,
You know how to act accordingly. So how do you learn to act accordingly so that that state of enlightenment becomes behavioral,
mm.
becomes a real expression of what you are?
Would it be play?
Play, yeah, you become playful, you become, mysterious. Uh, when you can look at someone and see how their mind works better than they do,
Mm,
then you face a choice. You can
mm,
become a manipulator and take advantage of that person, or you can play with them,
mm.
the benefit of both parties, but
Yes.
the joy and delight of that play, of the mind,
Mm,
the awakening. Everything goes back to the bud, the word bud, the word bud,
mm,
root. What does bud mean? Bud means like opening, awakening.
mm,
Like when you picture a lotus flower and you see it unfolding, that's bud. When you
mm,
see a rose open up, That's Bud. So what does that tell you? It tells you in the language of non-attainment that that action of Bud is actually present in your mind right now all the time. You don't have to go somewhere to find it. You don't have to go through exercises to achieve it when you can take the concept in your mind that it's already happening.
Mm.
And that concept is very important because it's not like any other concept. It's a completely unique concept. And they call it in Buddhism the bodhicitta. Bodhicitta means the very notion of enlightenment, the intelligence of enlightenment, the thought of it. There are stories in Chan and Zen when of an accomplished master who had achieved this state, who just said something to a student and they got the bodhicitta instantly. They didn't have to go through any process whatsoever. They
Mm.
immediately realized that inside your state of mind right now, inside your consciousness, there is that force that
Mm.
is happening. And so the practice, if you want to call it that, is simply settling into that and
Mm.
used to that and enjoying it and digging how it works, digging
Hmm.
how your enlightened mind, which is no different from your ordinary mind, you just think it's different. It's no,
Mm.
how it nudges you, how it prompts you, how it comes over you. And the enjoyment of that is what I call emergent lucidity.
Mm. That's nice.
And that's how I would define enlightenment. It's a state of emergent lucidity.
Well, I've had that. I have.
Of course you
And
have.
it feels great. And it sort of comes out of nowhere and you have this sort of recognition, or there might be some stimulus that creates it, like in a conversation with someone. Um, and yeah, and you get this little, it's like feeling a download in some way, but it's not a download from the top. It's like you said, it's the bud opening up and you have this like expansion.
Yeah. I don't think that is so uncommon. But the uh, issue is that when it happens, uh, people let it go by. They don't realize the enormity of what is happening to them
Mm.
very moment. So
Mm.
there are properties that you recognize this power, this budding of the enlightened mind in your ordinary mind. One of them is elation. You feel elation,
Mm.
lightness. You feel legerity.
Mm.
It's light and it just opens and it keeps opening and it keeps opening. The sign of that you are on to it is that it builds. It builds
Mm.
all the time. So you
Mm.
don't just have like, oh, God, I was over there and I was walking out there. I was out in the mountains of Nepal or I was in the jungles of Guatemala and wow, I had it, Satori, sudden enlightenment. And then it sort of fades out. It
Mm.
never fades. It never fades out. On the contrary, it gets more intense.
Mm. And maintaining that, like, because then the assumption would be, oh, you have to put in effort to keep it. And by doing that, I assume you lose it.
You don't have to put an effort into maintaining the primary process of Bud,
Mm.
the enlightened mind within your own mind emerging. You just have to keep the attitude and the behavior
Mm.
consistent with it. It's not something you can control. It's bigger than you are. It's like a
Mm.
force of supernature in your own mind, and it happens by itself. So the practice is to notice it,
Hmm.
to notice it. And that's what Dog Sen is about. So you could say if there were a practice for non-attainment Buddhism, it would be Dog Zen.
Mm.
And there are exercises, sort of, there are instructions, but they are incredibly simple. They're very, very simple. They're like A, B, C simple. And
Hmm.
they don't get more complicated. You don't get into more and more complex levels of meditation and picking apart these sutras so that you can have some particular realization of some deity. None of that. It just clears the ground, clears the ground immediately. And that's my view of what enlightenment is
Hmm.
now. It wasn't that way before. You know, this is the end of Kali Yuga. And in the end of Kali Yuga, the conditions for enlightenment are totally unique and they're spectacular and
Hmm.
they're simple and they're direct. And there's various Buddhist teachings and Hindu teachings, but there's one Mahanirvana Tantra, which is a 11th century Hindu Buddhist text that says at the end of Kali Yuga, all the old forms of spiritual practice are obsolete.
Hmm.
You know, they would have said they're faking gay
Hmm.
if they had in the 11th century. They're obsolete. They're useless. They're futile. They're inane. They're stupid.
Hmm.
And the opportunity for the fully realized awakening in Kali Yuga is right at your fingertips, and you don't have to
Hmm.
do anything to have it, but you have to do certain things to realize that you have it
Hmm.
and to keep floating in that beautiful realization. So that's why I call it emergent lucidity.
Hmm. And for the audience, um, Dog Zen and the you mentioned there are a few very simple practices. People can find this on Nemater.
Yeah, it's on Nemater. If you go to Nemater on the menu panel, it says Dog Zen, and you can click on it, and it gives you the introduction with an introductory talk. It's called the Woke and the Woof. Woof, woof, woof. Your mind is like a dog, that is woof. It's like
Hmm.
woofing at you. Like when a dog woofs at you, it's
Yeah.
woofing at you. But you have to catch it because it's extremely fast. And this is something
Hmm.
I've talked about a lot, that the velocity of the enlightened mind is extremely fast
Hmm.
because everything is instantaneous. It's all
Hmm.
now. Yeah, so people can go, and there's also some couple of talks on my YouTube channel about introducing dog Zen. Okay,
Hmm. Hmm.
dogs, dogs barking. See that?
Hmm.
So that's a lot. I feel like we've just kind of danced around and hopped around things, but I guess we covered things fairly well. Do you have anything you want to say to like bring us around to a conclusion?
I think we landed the plane really nicely because we sort of postured what enlightenment has been conceived of in previous disciplines and what might people think it is today. Um, and without going into a whole bunch of detail and
Right.
literature and that kind of stuff,
Sure.
we sort of brought the pinpoint to a nice sharp spin. I don't know if that's the right image, but
It's great.
uh,
I would like to put a spin on the pin.
mhm,
So if we've awakened people's curiosity about dog Zen and non-attainment instruction, then maybe I could conclude by giving you the first instruction of dog Zen, which I
please.
don't think I've ever said in a talk. It's on Nemato. So I'll leave this as the spin on the pin of the bud of the awakened mind that is in your ordinary mind when it recognizes the root action of itself. And the root action of itself is called Rigpa. which simply means the power of attention. So what are you doing here? What are we doing? We're giving attention to each other. What are the people who are listening doing? They're using their power of attention. Some of them don't use it very well, and some of them don't have very much to use.
Mm,
Now, if you can recognize that some people have a greater power of attention, holding power than others, you're on to the game of emergent lucidity. You just have a higher and higher power of attention.
mm,
And this is the first principle of Dog Zen, which is a statement about how your attention works. It's called counting to one. No, it's called counting. Yeah, it's called counting to one. Usually, if you count, you start at one, but this is
mm,
called counting to one, right?
mm.
So it goes like this. Uh, what directs your attention to the productions of your mind is not a product of your mind. That's the first principle of Dog Zen.
Mm,
And it's direct pointing to the nature of mind. That's how D.T. Suzuki, who was one of the first Zen masters who came to America in 1895, defined Zen. He says it's direct pointing to how your mind works. This is direct pointing to how your observation works. See, you're using your observation to hear my words right now. You use it to do everything. But do you know how you're using it?
mm,
When you know how you're using it, then the emergent in lucidity begins to happen to you. Right?
mm.
Just another day in the dog pen.
Enough said.
Enough said. Okay.
Excellent.
Excellent, Gabriel. Thank you so much. We'll get this recorded. I'll get it out to you. And we've got a good connection here. So we'll look forward to keeping up our talks while you're in Guatemala.
Absolutely. We could do Sunday, if you want to go for a second one, because
Absolutely.
we missed one. Yeah. So you just tell me the topic. Uh,
Maybe continue on there. So let's say you propose a topic this time. We'll do it back and forth.
okay. Okay. Because there are probably some things that are like I've had some feedback already from people. Um, so I might ask what like maybe where there's a lack of understanding and we might touch on certain things just to help people with a bit of clarity. Uh, Not something we'd have to spend too long on, but I'll have a think.
I'm up
Um,
for that. I'm up for that. I just want to say, I watch body cam and dash cam videos a lot because I study criminology and, that's it.
mm,
And there's this great line where this one female cop is trying to explain to this stupid person why they're being arrested, and they have to explain it like 10 times.
mm,
So finally she says, "Well, I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you.
mhm.
So I'd be quite willing to explain it if I can. And we'll see
Okay.
how it goes out, okay?
Mhm. Perfect.
All right. Catch you around the
Thank,
bend. Thank you.
thanks, John.